I was recently sent this BenQ ScreenBar Plus for a review, which is what I'm doing here. It was nicely packaged and well presented, of course, but I'm more interested in the function. The light attaches at the top of your monitor, and it's kind of designed to hang from there and shine the light across it. Now, I've worked with screens for a very long time, and I always like to have an easy adjustable brightness, which I don't have on my second monitor right now. So I thought I'd hang it there, and to be honest, at first I really questioned the need for the lamp. It doesn't really seem to affect the brightness of the screen. But of course it turns out it's not for screen brightness, it's just to help brighten up your workspace, which it does amazingly. Because it hangs on the top of your monitor, it saves so much space. And the dial at the bottom doesn't take up space either. You don't need an external power source because it's powered through USB, which is of course fantastic. According to this, it did actually pass all the European Union assessments for light sources against blue light hazard. So it's a risk-free light source. That's actually really cool. There is a light sensor that kind of helps an auto-dim function. I haven't really noticed it, but I haven't played around that much with it. Everything is weighted beautifully. Nothing feels like a cheap component. My other lamp is sitting sadly in the back. Overall, I'm absolutely in love with this lamp. If you're interested in checking it out, I have put links below. Tone. It's something that can be set up quite quickly. Enough that we as the audience understand what kind of story is about to unfurl.
Thanks for coming after me.
But it can be forgotten about too. And while generally a lot of cartoons opt for bright colors with overall warmth reinforced by the story being told, there are a few that opt for a more subdued, darker approach.
Where are we?
In the woods?
Everything in animation is created, so choosing the mood to reinforce your story is very important. And if we want a masterclass in setting a tone or atmosphere, look no further than Batman, the animated series. From the beginning, they had a very solid concept.
We knew what we didn't want. We didn't want the show to seem like every other adventure show on TV.
In this video, I want to focus exclusively on mood. And to be honest, I'll try to veer away from the writing as much as I can, even though I understand how important it is. Really, I want to dissect two components, the visuals and the audio. So let's start with the visuals. Batman has been around quite a long time, and throughout his history, there has always been different artists adding to his mythos. Based on an idea by Bob Kane and really fleshed out by Bill Finger, Batman begged to be pulled into darker places. Well, now I do want to just touch briefly on the 1960s Batman TV series. It was actually a pretty accurate portrayal of Batman, just of a different era, the 1950s. But the 1960s, the comics had already shifted in a new direction. Of course, there were their earlier serials, but yeah, really looks like my best attempt at dressing up as Batman as a kid. But I don't want to get too lost here. Let's get back to the animation. Okay, a little further, back to where the dark Avenger of crime really starts to show. And that's where the 90s animated show got a lot right. Mainly because of its extensive pull from source material thanks to Bruce Timm, Alan Burnett and Paul Dini's interest. And compared to other shows at the time, it was dark.
Oh, it's so dark. Yes, that's what it's good. That's what's good about it.
The cinematic language of the world is established right there. But of course they took it a step further.
And Eric Radomski came up with this really stunning background design where he was using very vibrant colors on black paper to sort of mute the look and give it a darker look.
Radomski wasn't as big a comic book fan as the other creative heads. Rather, he drew inspiration from Tim Burton's Batman in 1989.
The Tim Burton influence. I chose to present the piece I felt was influenced by the dark noir sort of beginnings and his influence on my sort of perspective of the character was probably the most influential because I wasn't particularly a comic book reader as a kid.
What's amazing is with that style, they lay a strong foundation that's informed so much of the show's choices and coined the term Dark Deco.
Dark Deco is a term that I came up with on the spur of the moment once, just because it is combining two different things. The dark look of the show was something that Eric and I were both really into trying to achieve. We both wanted to bring like a kind of an old-timey film noir kind of sensibility to the visuals. Having the show take place almost all the time at night.
You're not pulling drawings out of the light, you're pulling the drawing out of the darkness, which is, of course, where Batman lives.
It's like, I don't want to paint that entire city over and over and over again, and especially at night, because all of that dark imagery you've got to paint in. So it just occurred to me, what if we started with the dark environment and we just brought light into it?
We kind of wanted to put our own spin on the superhero world, incorporating, film noir and German expressionism and Art Deco.
Tim Burton's Batman was much more gothic, so they shifted away from that.
In my mind, it was sort of like, what if the 1939 World's Fair had gone on another 60 years or so? And that cool sense of design and stylishness from the Art Deco years was in operation well up until the 90s. That way you could have kind of a rounded look to the cars and a stylish look to the buildings.
Batman was created in the 40s, so it's almost like it just never stopped being the 40s.
We definitely were informed by noir fiction and pulp stories, and Hitchcock was kind of a guiding light. How to deliver mood with camera.
And what I love the most about it is it sets a perfect space for Batman to exist in, where he feels the most comfortable. There's a lot of shape and silhouette, and there's always dark areas completely enveloped in shadow. That allows Batman to move in and out, almost as if he could always be in there. Just that rim light highlighting the cowl and those striking white eyes. It picks a little at the usual idea of wanting characters to stand out from the backgrounds.
As dark as I can do the show, this is the way I would play it. I'd love to have characters moving in and out of the shadows. At night, you only see elements, you fill in the gaps. Kind of the perfect approach to Gotham City.
That simple identifiable shape in the shadows, that came from Bruce Timm.
The funny thing about the Bruce Timm style, it is so appealing, and so many people seem to think they can get it. It's a very tough thing to actually do.
There's a ghost of an Alex Toth drawing, a space ghost drawing underneath my Batman drawing, even though I wasn't subconsciously, channeling Alex Toth, but it was just kind of there, and it kind of came out.
Even his female characters took inspiration from Dan DeCarlo's work, especially the heart-shaped face. And what's interesting as well is earlier superhero cartoons tended to emphasize musculature and strong posing, but the movement was so lackluster. There was just too much detail to animate fluidly.
Bruce was aware it needs to be animated, it needs to move around a lot. How simple can we make everything?
Bruce Timm's style really is, it's curves against lines. I mean, it's people at Disney were doing that for years and years, in feature.
So that was really stripped away in the show. And those simple, strong decisions and mixing the two elements took a lot of inspiration from a really incredible animated show.
The Fleischer Superman cartoons from the early 1940s, those were probably the strongest influence on the look of Batman and the series as well.
Even though the Fleischer shorts were a lot, shorter, they felt like mini movies, which is exactly what the teams strove for.
We early on decided we wanted to have individual title cards for each episode. This was something they used to do back in the old days in classic cartoons.
The whole concept of film noir, that all influenced the writers and the artists and the editors of Batman comics. All of that were just as influential on the people involved with Batman, the animated series. And you can see it clear as day.
You can also hear it, which leads to the next layer of establishing mood. Without sound, animation can't really come to life, but going deeper, it's how you use those audible elements that will really inform the mood. Luckily, this was something else they thought about fully, letting the story tell itself.
He did not want a wall-to-wall music on his shows. At times, sometimes I wish that we had just a little bit more. But he was right in saying that we need breathing space. Absolutely. Sometimes you just need a simple sound effect. The dripping of the water, a rat scurrying across a sewer line or something. That's all you needed. You just let the echo take it.
It really helps you settle into the environment rather than being distracted with a cacophony of noise.
Anybody seen my sock?
Then behind, or even in front of the precise sound effects, is this beautiful orchestral score by Shirley Walker.
Speaking with her, she totally respected what we were doing. She was very collaborative in terms of what we wanted to do with this, and we had hoped for something that would sound like a movie score. Again, in keeping with the whole idea of mini movies, and she just nailed it. We owe so much to her in terms of, again, keeping up this level of class for a show.
The opening theme was based on Tim Burton's Batman theme, of course, but Shirley Walker broadened it. And the orchestra was really a product of Steven Spielberg wanting Tiny Toon Adventures to have one.
We're tiny, we're toony, we're all a little loony.
And the animation division just kept the trend for other shows.
Wow! It's like, this sounds great. I've never heard a TV cartoon that sounds like this. It's like, yeah, it was something.
But of course, the success of animation comes from breathing life into the characters, understanding the root of the characters. And to be honest, trying to escape the 1960s Batman TV series seemed a good place to start.
I wasn't interested in then making the TV show. I was much more interested in making a darker version to what the roots of the comic book was. Just goes back to the psychology of what the guy is trying to do. He's trying to scare people. He's trying to make a mythic, almost supernatural persona, because he is a real person, and he's just, he's trying to intimidate and frighten.
The attitude from the 1989 Batman film really drove the momentum of the TV series and helped to let the executives know that this direction with Batman could be a critical success.
That's one of the things that really helped set the Batman show apart from other cartoons on at the time, was that the high caliber of the vocal performances.
They recorded their lines together in the same room with individual booths, allowing the actors space to react and also to truly emote.
I wanted to make sure that there was a sensitivity to these pieces, and that's why you'll see where there are emotional scenes that are played, I let them breathe. I wanted them to breathe. I wanted to take more time. I wanted the actors to make me cry, and they almost always did. And if they didn't, I felt like I hadn't done my job right.
Now, of course, this all came from the writing, and beneath all this beautiful design and deep sound is a real respect for the characters.
The idea is to make every character human, even the bad guys. Part of that was Paul, part of that was Alan, and part of it was the two of them made sure that they had a lot of writers who were inclined to take the characters seriously and not write in stereotypes. Not have just, some crazy villain doing crazy stuff. The villains wanted things. They wanted human things.
Again, diving into the psychology of each character helped us understand who they are and why they exist in the city the way they do.
The villain gets his comeuppance, but because we've related to the character and we felt sorry for them, it's a tragedy. Again, very noir, very, very noir.
The legacy of the show is vast, birthing the DC extended animated universe, as well as informing the current landscape of superheroes, and also readjusting TV animation of the time. And that all came from respecting the past.
They went back to the core concepts of who Batman is. What was the motivation of the character? What were the things that mattered most to the character?
This is why it's such a masterclass in the setting of a mood, creating a tone and just drenching us in such a rich atmosphere. All the cogs slotted together, and when you hear the opening titles, you know exactly what kind of show you're about to experience. I mean, to me, it's still the greatest title sequence without a title.
It was so stylized. And then you watch 1, 2, 3 episodes and you realize that is absolutely right. It fits with the voices, it fits with the style. You hear that music and you see those images, and it blew me away. I thought it was stunning.
Early on, we kind of had an exact kind of idea of the tone that we wanted to do. On one hand, we did want to make it accessible to children, but on the other hand, we were literally making the show that we would love to have seen as a kid ourselves.
It was such an adherence to tone once they established where we wanted to go with the characters and with the series and how we wanted it to play. We adhered to that tone all the way through, and there was something that Kids could watch it, adults could watch it, and it always felt true to the heart of the characters and to the world that we had established.
They knew what they wanted and poured everything into that vision.
And you can't have a successful show if you're second-guessing your demographic, because you'll never achieve anything of merit.
And you know what? You can see that mood seeping out of the very first test that they had. And that never left the series. Batman the Animated Series shows how critical it is to choose a tone from the very beginning. And from there, it will help guide all your decisions back to the core value of your work. That's part of the reason it still stands out today as one of the greatest animated TV series ever made. Well, I think so anyways. How about you, Batman?
Am I blue? Am I blue?
Hi everyone, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate that. You know, getting to sit down and watch Batman the Animated Series again was amazing. And I even branched out further and continued the story into Batman Beyond. How couldn't I? Of course, the biggest shout out goes out to my Patreons. Their support is amazing monthly. I think we're starting to create this really lovely community that, to be honest, is teaching me a lot. So if you want to get involved, of course, there's a link in the description. Thanks again.